Okay, so let's see. We are right on time for this. So, hey everyone, I think I'm just going to continue from where we left off. That is from all the resources we have in SDE skills. I'm just going to give you some applications on how I leveraged them, like some real experience and how it benefited me, and a bunch of other resources as well. So this is an AMA session. Um I'm going to present for a few minutes and then maybe we'll just open the floor for question answers. If there is anything urgent, please feel free to stop me in middle of the presentation as well. And if not, then we can have a bunch of question answers at the end. So the topics which I'm planning to cover today is why am I doing this? First of all, what is my motivation and maybe some basic disclaimers. Um, what is my background? I think it is generally important to understand where a person or a presenter is coming from so that maybe you can relate and identify that what that person's journey has been, and bunch of things that why was I looking for a change, what kind of preparation did I do across all the types of interviews, the design, behavior, coding interviews, the offer stage, the negotiations, and some Uber learnings and suggestions which I have for you folks. Cool. So why am I doing this? It's mainly because I benefited a lot from the community, especially SDE skills. It gave a nice forum for me to learn things, to present things, to share things, ask questions. So I'm just trying to pass on what I learned and I got benefited from. So it's just like a natural thing for me to do. And my goal is just to help the current aspirants or anybody actually right now. It's not just aspirants, anybody who is thinking of interviewing in future. I hope that my experience may help them in some way or the other. And some disclaimers, that is, let's not talk about any interview specific questions or any offer numbers, because those are like really, we have signed those documents to not disclose, non-disclosure agreement. So let's not go into that territory. Then take everything with a pinch of salt, right? Because I am coming from a very specific background. My experience is different from you, maybe. So my mileage, my velocity may vary from yours. So, and what I am saying may not completely be applicable, may not be completely true. So take everything with a pinch of salt there. And if I mention any specific company's name, any specific softwares, I'm not really endorsing them. It is just, I'm just sharing what I felt. So no sort of endorsements here. Cool. So quick background, I'll not spend a lot of time on this slide. You can always go to my LinkedIn to get more details. But I have always been a software engineer, a backend engineer most of my career. At right now, I am at Facebook. So that is the specific interview preparation and experience which I'm going to share. My move from Microsoft to Facebook is what I'm going to cover. So I have spent time at Microsoft, 4.5 years at Microsoft, a year and a half at eBay. I did my master's from Arizona State University, and there I did a couple of internships, one at Amazon, another at iFactor. This company is now called Gubra. And then before coming to the US, I was a systems engineer at Infosys for a couple of years. And then I did my undergrad in Nirma University in the state of Gujarat in India. So that has been my journey. Feel free to look up more information if you're interested about the projects I did in past, the courses and everything that's on my LinkedIn. So with this background, let's jump into the main agenda for this talk. That why was I looking for a change after spending 4.5 years at Microsoft? Uh, I to be honest, I did not have any complaints as such at Microsoft. I had a really good deal at Microsoft in terms of kind of work I was doing, the kind of trust I had from my manager, and the compensation, everything was not something which I would complain about, right? But I was just too comfortable doing what I was doing because I spent a significant amount of time in the same team, in the same role. So I was very comfortable. That means that my learning was slowed down. After a point, if I'm doing the same sort of thing, I was not learning at that fast pace. So my motivation for change mainly was to expedite my learning and stay relevant in the industry because our industry is rapidly changing. So if I don't keep up with that, I may become irrelevant soon. So that was another point that, okay, I want to expedite my learning and like stay relevant. And there was a salary cliff which was approaching. Generally, there is a good amount of stocks we get when we join a company as a new hire stocks, and they vest over 4 years. And I was approaching that 4 year cliff. Cliff here means that on my fifth year, I may not make as much as money I made in my fourth year. So, and that's a very realistic thing as well. And I wanted to put that in the perspective because it's not always, the good thing that learning and staying relevant. It's money and matters too. So money was also one of the motivations. Cool. Now, with this motivation, how did I prepare on various types of interviews? I'll start with coding rounds. So I remember I started attending those daily lead code sessions on SDE skill. Bhavesh and Vivek just talked about those sessions, and they are really useful because you can get into the rhythm. There is a group energy which you can use to keep yourself motivated, and you can learn from different perspectives which are shared there. And this is a very um, conducive forum, very welcoming forum where you can, just even practice how would you talk to your interviewers in future when you appear in the real interviews. That's how I did for a few sessions. That there are some questions which are picked up by that bot, and then I would just take some opportunities to share how I feel and how would I approach that particular question. And that helps me when I'm doing real interviews. Because in the virtual world, explaining somebody over call is something which we don't really have a lot of experience with. So that really helped me. I leveraged lead code a lot for my coding practice. Uh, and the way I did was that I had set up some target companies. And I'll talk more about how should you set up target companies. Don't have just one or two, have a few. I would say 4 to 6 target companies. So I had those companies in my mind that, okay, I want to chase these companies. And I was filtering questions based on this companies, the top questions which are asked in this company based on lead code. I don't know how they really come up with that data, but that was really useful for me. So I ended up using the premium subscription from lead code to really filter things based on the company and the frequency. And one thing to note here is that solving a question was not the only thing which was important, because one question can have multiple solutions. So it's always a good practice to go through all various solutions, various alternatives for one question, because there are different angles to look at different things. One is using a lot of memory, but is saving a lot on the CPU. One is using some different kind of approach altogether, maybe some sort of mathematical approach, some well-known algorithm, things like that. So, and this kind of things will actually happen in your real interviews as well. I had one interview when I had given a solution, and the interviewer was like, okay, what else can you do? And the time complexity and everything did not really change. It was just like a different way of thinking. So this always helps to get different perspectives. Read the discussions on lead code here. I have always found them really valuable. So on each lead code question in the solutions tab, there is also next to solution tabs, there is a discussion tab as well. You can rank based on the top voted discussion, and that can also provide some valuable insights. And why I like lead code is it really helps with edge case awareness. Because many a times, if we are just doing it on our own machine and maybe in our own favorite IDE, we might be able to come up with the algorithm which we think works for few cases which we are able to think of at that particular time. But lead code actually makes sure that it runs on a fleet of unit tests and covers a lot of scenarios. So a lot of companies pay a lot of attention to your edge case awareness. That are you thinking of boundary conditions, all sorts of different cases, and I think that is where lead code really helps. So yes, of course, be aware of the time and space complexity of your solution, because solving a question functionally is the primary thing, but being aware of how good or bad your solution is in terms of time and space is also very essential. So leverage lead code again for those things. And yeah, I think I covered the third, fourth point. Yeah, during the interviews, what I generally do and also recommend is that you would somewhere know that, okay, the current solution which you are thinking or which comes to your mind first may not be the most optimal solution. But don't worry about that as the first shot. Focus on getting the working solution first and then quickly iterate uh, with an optimal solution and share this with your interviewer. Collaboration with interviewers is the key to the to all the interviews. So work with your interviewer, tell him or her that, hey, I think this may work, but I may want to fast follow with a better idea, but let me get this in place first so that we at least have some sort of solution. So instead of focusing on some optimal solution and maybe not getting enough time to even finish that, this way you would have some sort of thing which is already working, and then you would have ideas which you would bounce with your interviewer to come up with a better solution. And that's how we actually do in code reviews and things like that as well. It's an iterative process. So uh, follow the iterations basically. Cool. This is something which is very specific to the virtual interviews, and I find it really useful. That is, I was very much used to doing my rough work, like approach building and everything, taking an example and solving it through my algorithm, everything on a notepad, using pen and paper. But, or maybe using a whiteboard, right, in the real physical interviews. But that privilege is missing in the virtual world. So try doing this practice work, going through your algorithm and, checking what is going to be this variable's value at this particular iteration in the for loop. What are all the variables going to have as their values, things like that. Even your thoughts, just type everything in the editor, whatever editor you are using, because that keeps the interviewer involved, and he or she might be able to give you some nudges in the right direction. And this actually helps a lot for a good impactful interviews, and it needs practice. We are not so much used to writing indices on an array. If I have an array of size 10, I want to say the first element is at index 0, 1, 2, 3, things like that. Practicing those things on an editor would make things really nice for you and your interviewer to follow as well. So those were the things which I implemented and did for the coding round. Okay, I'll move to the design now. So design, I'm going to spend a few slides on design because that is that is one of the most demanding interviews in my opinion. Because the syllabus part, right? It's an endless content. Plus, it is a very open-ended for, open-ended type of discussion. So you don't know what you are going to get asked and what the interviewer is looking for. At the same time, the content which is available for design preparation is just endless. There are thousands of videos about different topics, a lot of tech blogs and a lot of books, courses, and things like that, right? So with this, how do you know whether you are ready for the interviews, right? So I generally like to have some sort of syllabus set out for me, which I can track and use that to track my progress. Basically, if I'm saying that okay, I want to do one book. I'm going to talk about that book as well. It's Designing Data Intensive Application. I want to do this book end to end. I want to finish that educative IO course. And then I want to read some tech blogs just out of my curiosity, right? That will give me a perspective and a target to chase that I want to finish this and I know I have made this progress. So based on your understanding and comfort level, I would recommend have some sort of syllabus in mind and don't be fixated on that. Keep updating that as well, as and when you see some things which you would like to add to the syllabus based on your curiosity or the gaps you identified from what you have already carved out. So what I did for my own syllabus and preparation is that I attended the SDE skills Saturday morning design sessions. So there are two things I think we already, I'll just repeat quickly that every Saturday morning, 9 a.m. EST, uh, we alternate between a design session, a design topic session where a presenter would just come and talk about various topics such as Google file system or maybe Zookeeper and things like that. And uh, another Saturday would be a design mock interview. So you can be a participant just to listen to the conversation and learn from that discussion. You can be a candidate to have a mock interview, or you can be an interviewer to even understand the different perspectives or understand the perspective from the other side. Maybe that will help you understand the expectations as well, that what an interviewer may want to get through, right? So leverage as these skills for those things. I ended up doing that, and there is also now we are not doing. We are done with designing data intensive application book on the Wednesday evening book club session. I think we started clean code as the next book. So I leveraged I leveraged that as well for my design interview preparation. Then there is a course on educative.io. I think this is very popular. It's called Grokking the Design Interview. I went through that course. One comment I would say is that I use this course mainly for template and topics that is given system design. I'm just taking it from the educative.io's examples that design Twitter or design Dropbox or design Pastebin. If you read through those sections, the best thing which educative.io provides you is with the topics which you may want to cover during your interviews. You can get those topics and then read further about those topics by just searching about those topics more, because I found that there is not a lot of detail on each of the topics which the educative.io session covers. So use that for template and topics and like continue your search for more details on the topic. Then out of curiosity, I started reading some tech blogs from Microsoft Azure and Twitter. They are sharing their own examples on the distributed systems which they have built and what were the iterations which they went through and what is the current state, what are the things, technologies and things like that they ended up using. And you can like find your own favorite tech blogs and follow that. This was for me to just keep exploring things. It was because there is no set content there, so It was just for my curiosity. And I highly recommend this book to everybody. If you are interviewing, not interviewing, doesn't really matter. Um, I just would recommend this any day. So it's the book by Martin Klugman called Designing Data Intensive Applications. I read most of the book, which really helped me build a lot of perspectives. Because many a times what happens is that the question which is being asked to you is something which you may not have really worked on. So this book familiarizes with you to you with a lot of technologies and lot of things which are out there in the distributed systems world. So if not real experience, you can have some academic exposure and you can apply those learnings in the real interviews. And I went through around 15 real design interviews. I did not pass all of them. I learned in each of those interviews and kept on building on top of what I learned. So having multiple interviews in a real setup also helps. If you are doing with your friend, you have that comfort level. If you are doing mock, you are also somewhat comfortable. But if you are doing a real interview, that is that is the best place to get experience. So uh, try to get some real interview experience as well before you reach your target companies. Logistics, again, with the virtual world, this has become very important. That figure out how you are going to present, what tools, technology you are going to use, and practice those things. So I started with draw.io in my first mock interview, and turns out that I was not really able to use that properly. So I ended up using the stylus on a touch screen. So that was my setup. So I would use the stylus on my touch screen, and then I would have the webcam facing me. So I can continuously talk to my interviewer and also share the screen from that touch surface which I was using. A lot of people use whiteboard, and then, just as you might have seen in a lot of YouTube videos, that there are some presenters who are talking and also sharing at the whiteboard. You can follow that. Uh, there are many different web-based drawing websites which you can use to draw things. So many options. And the companies you are interviewing with, they would give you all the flexibilities to choose your own setup. So I would say find the thing which works the best for you, practice as much as possible, and get comfortable with that. Cool. Now, some general tips which I learned from this experience for design was that it's a very open-ended, as I mentioned before, it's very open-ended. And there are high chances that you would be faced with some things which you might not have seen before. So don't be afraid to, solve that problem which you haven't seen before, and make this as a collaborative exercise with your interviewer, saying, and you can be frank that, hey, I don't know this particular technology, and I think we need to apply. I may just have heard about it, but I don't know the internals. I don't even know a lot of high level details. I just know that it is applicable in this situation. And maybe the interviewer can, give you some things which you can build on top of. That happened to me in one of my system design interviews when I was asked to build a system like a Slack. And I know that we should be using WebSockets uh, to, show that if somebody is typing, that should come from the WebSockets. But I didn't know anything about them as such, that how WebSockets work and what are different things around WebSockets. So I had a discussion with my interviewer, and we came up with some things which I could then build on top of. So you use your interviewer as your collaborator. The interviewers are generally looking for somebody they would like to work with and collaborate with from in an interviewee. So give your interviewer that experience of collaboration as much as possible, and have open communication. Then you have got limited time in the system design interview, and there is a lot which can be covered, right? So, and your interviewer may have come up with some specific agenda in mind that, hey, I want to cover the specific things in this interview. Maybe in a distributed system, I want to talk about load balancer and see what are all the various failure scenarios. Or I want to focus in the database schema and understand how all the database tables are going to work and interact, or which type of database you end up using and things like that. So I highly recommend checking with your interviewer at each step. That first step is going to be requirement gathering and requirement understanding, and from there you can go in all sorts of direction. I can start with database schema design. After requirement gathering, I can start with API design, can go to capacity estimations, high level diagram. Many things can happen. You can ask the interviewer that, hey, I can do any of this, what would you like me to focus on? You got to drive your interview, but at the same time your interviewer needs to be on board with that, so that you can meet the expectations which he or she has kept in their mind. And be honest, as I mentioned, right? Be honest if you are not familiar with the concept, and don't try to say that, hey, I have seen this, I have worked on this, and then fail in that piece. I have done that as well. That is, I would say that, okay, I have used this, or I know more about it, and then I end up flunking that interview because I was not really honest in that case. So being honest really helps. And when you don't know something, make logical assumptions and say that, hey, I don't know a lot about this, but can I assume, and then move forward. You gotta always make progress in the forward direction by making logical assumptions and by keeping your interviewer on board. And at each step, state your assumptions clearly. Have a template. Uh, I mentioned the educative.io course, and even on SDE skills as well, the system design templates have been shared multiple times. Have your own template as well if you don't relate with anybody else's template, or any template which is out there. Have your own template so that you have some flow in your mind which you want to get through, and keep that flexible. The interviewer may not have the same flow in his or her own mind, so but at least have something for yourself which you can follow. Use your time effectively, meaning, so let's say I'm doing capacity estimations, right? It can go into small details of the network usage, the CPU usage, and things like that. But is that really the good use of your time in the interview? Ask your interviewer that question. So use your time effectively, because you have only got so much time and a lot to cover. For system design interview, I highly recommend practicing wisely, because a lot depends on the interviewer in system design setup. So there is a lot of responsibility on the interviewer as well to accept a lot of ideas, because it's an open-ended question, right? A lot can happen there. So interviewer needs to have an open perspective about things. So don't just pair up with anybody and uh, ask for feedback. Go to the people who you think are able to give you right feedback. And I recommend SDE skills for that, because we would have interviewers, as well as a lot of people who will be watching your mock interviews and will be giving you feedback. So it is not only one person who is going to give you feedback. There will be a lot of people, and we have got really experienced people who join, and who are interviewing other candidates in their current companies. So we get a really good perspective on from the mock interviews. So leverage that. And at the end of the interviews, I think for both coding and design, have fun. It's supposed to be an intellectual discussion, which you should be having fun with, because uh, if you are discussing some interesting problem with your colleague, you would feel good after having some sort of conclusion or some sort of solution. So have that during your interviews as well. And That should really help. Cool. That's all for the design interviews. I'm moving to the behavioral and project deep dive. So each company, I would either have a dedicated behavioral round or may spread the behavioral questions across all the interviews. It depends. Use your recruiter to ask what is the expectation. And each company would have their own leadership principles. Go through those leadership principles and come up with your own examples from your recent past. So recent past is important mainly because if the interviewer is trying to dig deep into that, if your memory is fresh, then it really, brings the point home. Otherwise, it may remain shallow. So try to give examples from your recent past where you can really dig deep and write your answers for all the leadership principles of that company. And answers meaning just some examples which you would like to attach to each of these leadership principles, and write them, refine them, and practice the storytelling with your friends, interview buddies. That is, hey, this is my example, and see how you are able to tell that story to anybody. And practicing always helps. So behavioral round also, I would say, practice your story and see what people respond with. Are they able to understand? Are you keeping a lot of technical details? Are you omitting a lot of technical details? And keep iterating on that. Some companies are asking for a project deep dive round as well. So I have seen generally people talk about, okay, tell me about your past project, which was really impactful. And that is like a 10 to 15 minutes discussion. And then we jump into coding or design or something else. But I have seen some companies who are just dedicating one round to project deep dive session. So, and this wouldn't be a surprise to you. Your recruiter should be able to tell you this upfront. For these things, excuse me, excuse me. For these things, uh, prepare a slide. You may not necessarily share that slide with your interviewer during the interview, but I would still say prepare a slide so that you practice that in your mind that, okay, these are all the things I want to cover. And if you get a chance, then you can just, show that slide and use that as a reference point in your presentation. It's basically a talk about a past project, and it's your opportunity to show the best you have done in past. So you should drive this. You should include as much as details as you are allowed to from your company. Don't share any company secrets, but share as much as you would like to. This is your home ground. So prepare for that. Even though this is something you have done in past, preparing and practicing is still important, because there may be some things which the interviewer will ask you and you may just don't have that data point. For example, if they ask you, okay, what is the error rate on your service? You know that there is some sort of error rate, but you don't have that number top of your mind. So those things, if you collect those things well in advance, that would help have a really good interview. Cool. Offers and negotiation. So the way I did was, and one thing to note is that for negotiation, it is nowadays I have seen that it is very important to have multiple offers. So to get multiple offers, and every company may put some sort of time limit on the offer deadline and things like that. They'll pressurize you. It's obvious because they want to also come to a decision whether you are joining the company or not. So it's a fair expectations from their end. But at the same time, if you are still interviewing and you are waiting for some other company's results, or you are just practicing right now, but you have got an offer from a company, that would just put you in a spot where you don't have any leverage. So try to plan in such a way that you get all the offers during a 2 weeks window. It's hard, but it's doable. So try to converge all the offers together. That way, you have all the data points and you are not at loss of information or opportunity. You are not thinking that, hey, I think I can crack that interview, but I need to decide right now whether I want to continue interviewing or not. So don't put yourself in that spot. Don't put your recruiter in that spot, and converge everything in the two weeks time window, because I think each company would give you 2 to 3 weeks easily to wrap everything up. And be open to your recruiters that, hey, you are not the only company I am interviewing, and they also are not interviewing only you for that position. So but still keep that dialogue open, so that they don't have any false hopes that you are just dedicated to that particular company. And you can be very open saying that, hey, I'm expecting an offer from this company, my interview for this company is this week, so let's wait for that. Being open always helps. So your recruiter is your ally in this process, so leverage that. And as any negotiation tactic, let the companies give you the first set of numbers. If you set up something which may be a good number from your perspective, but the companies have more potential to give you a higher number, don't reveal your number first. That is the standard advice I give. There may be some pressure from the recruiter saying that, hey, we want to avoid back and forth, so why don't you give the expectations first? If that happens, and if there is a real persistence on that, I would say look at levels. Yeah, I have mentioned this here. Look at levels.fy and blind to come up with some realistic expectations and then give that number, because you don't want to miss out on the opportunity of getting the higher number if you give something which is lower than what they would have actually granted you. So I generally advise against that, but if need be, go and come up with some realistic numbers. And yes, use competing offers to get the best deal. That always works. So your all the offers are converged into 2 weeks, and now you can, you know, select the right teams. You can always negotiate on the team as well, that, hey, I want to talk to the team first before I accept your offer. So get the right team first, and then negotiate on all the components, which are base, RSUs, joining bonus. These are, I think, the components which are negotiable. I have never seen annual bonus. Some companies have annual bonuses as well. I haven't seen that percentage as a negotiable component, but all these things are negotiable. So negotiate on all these components. I recommend negotiating on the base first, because that has a cascading effect. If your base is higher, that means a lot of different things will automatically be higher, because a lot of things are percentage of your base. So focus on getting the base maxed out, and then RSUs and joining bonus, because joining bonus is a one-time thing. RSUs are going to appreciate, hopefully. So this is the order in which also I recommend negotiating. And yeah, use this resources levels.fy and blind. Again, take this with a pinch of salt, but I have found this reasonably accurate in my experience. But again, uh, take everything with a pinch of salt. Cool. My learnings and suggestions. I'm now wrapping up. These are last two slides. This this was interesting initially when I started the process. At some point in time, I felt that this interview preparation has nothing to do with the real work I am going to do in the next company I am going to join, or it doesn't have anything to do with what I am doing in my current company. Well, you just got to make peace with this process, because this is the process. You are looking for a change. This is what is needed to get the change. Accept the process and make your peace with it. I would just move on. I had hard time dealing with that. It's like, okay, this is not adding up. This is completely unrelated, but this is how it is. You can try to still draw some similarities in your work and things like that, but somewhere I found it little orthogonal from the kind of work we end up doing versus the kind of interview questions we end up getting asked. Always focus on your target companies. Don't randomize yourself, and explore all these resources to find like find out the interview process of the company, the kind of questions they are asking, the kind of things they are looking for. Yes, consider 4 to 6 target companies easily, because again, a lot depends on luck here. Uh, it is hard work is necessary, but at the same time, there are a lot of variables which are not in our control in the interview process. So have multiple options and basically do a brute force so that you will hit a target if you have multiple targets you are chasing. Uh, Request feedback on acceptance and rejections. So I have bolded this acceptance because many a times we don't ask for feedback when we have got an a positive response for the interview. But I think these are the times when you get the most important feedback. Let's say it's a telephone, or there is everything is virtual now, but the phone screen round, right? And you go through the on-site. Ask what were the critical points which were there in your feedback, even though it was positive. That way, you know what things to improve on. If that particular critical feedback remains consistent in your virtual on-site, that may become a red flag. So get that critical feedback, even though it was a positive response, and make sure you give counter examples for that. I have seen that a lot of times companies don't share feedback when there are rejections. So that's okay. That is the process. Again, accept the process. But if there is a positive response, maybe for example, in your non-target company, even target company, that is really valuable. That feedback is going to be really valuable. And I have actually learned from that uh, critical feedback, which was present in my positive response. So leverage that. Take time off. I took time off during my interview process. Don't be afraid to do that. Like everybody has got PTOs which they can use. So be respectful of your existing employer, but at the same time, be in the boundaries of that limit. But this is one of the most important decisions of your life. So prioritize that and take enough time off so that you are not working long hours in your company for your regular work and as well as for the interview preparation, and you are burning yourself out. Take your time off and focus on the interview preparation, and yeah, make sure that this is an important decision, so it's okay to take time off. Yes, ask for additional rounds if you get rejections. Don't hesitate. This is important. Sometimes we don't we take everything as it is presented to us. It's not always true. So I have actually done that, and I have gotten follow-up rounds as well after getting rejections. I would just explain to them that, hey, this happened. I think I can do better. I think this was off. This was not right. Whatever is your reason. And even if you don't have any reason, you can just say that, hey, I think I can do better. Can I be considered one more time? Can I give additional round and see if I can give a counter for that negative data point? Just give it a shot. It's anyway a rejection. There is nothing to lose. But don't deprive yourself of that opportunity. Don't hesitate. Nothing to worry about there. But ask for additional rounds if there is need. There is a need. If you are getting down leveled, you can ask for additional rounds. If you're getting rejected, you can ask for additional rounds. Yes, knowing the expectation is the most important thing in any interview here. Check with your recruiter what is going to be the expectation, and even in the interview, in the first few minutes, ask what is the expectation. Are you supposed to cover one question, one coding question, two coding question? Where should you be spending most of your time in? Does the code needs to be functionally running? Are you going to cover some unit test at the end? So that you know what you are getting into and what the interviewer is looking for. So spend a few minutes in getting that expectation clear so that you can deliver on the expectation. Cool. This is last slide. Uh, Practice is important. So Prime was one of the platforms which I used for coding interview. I used it for mock, but I did not have a good experience because for the reasons I mentioned. So use Prime for coding. SDE skills is always there. Use your non-target companies as well sometimes. Draw motivations through SDE skills. There is a group energy, a lot of active people, a lot of helpful people, engage in the community, attend sessions. That really helps. And talk to your recruiter about expectation. Make sure that you know what is the level you are getting, what is the level you are chasing or targeting, and whether you are set up for that level or not. Because loops do get set up based on the target level. There would be, if you are looking for a higher level, then your loop, the interview loop would have more senior people because that's how they'll judge you for that higher level. They'll ask you questions accordingly. They'll set up more design rounds maybe. So make sure that your level expectation is very clear and there are no last minute surprises. Leverage your recruiter as much as possible. Understand all the expectations. Ask for sample questions. Ask for maybe mock rounds in the same company. If I'm interviewing at a company A, I can ask the recruiter, is it possible for me to, get on a call with an interviewer in a mock setup to understand the expectations? You can go to all the extents to make sure that you have all the information to deliver the best. And yes, this is also interesting because many a times we don't get that, generally in the interview setup, um, the first 5 minutes is an introduction, and then the interviewer would say that, okay, we'll keep some time at the end for question answers. And if the interview goes beyond time, then you wouldn't get that chance. Or you may worry about that and you may just, cut short the interview, something like that. Don't worry about it. Just set up dedicated informational round with the manager and the team as well. If you are interested in the team, you can talk to the manager and you can also ask for additional rounds to talk to developers or a skip level and things like that. So it's a two-way process. You are also interviewing them. They are also interested in hiring you. Hiring is tough. They also understand that. It's tough on both ends. So uh, you can ask for as much as information as possible as you need for with additional rounds. So don't worry about missing that opportunity in interviews. Reschedule whenever you are not comfortable. So don't hesitate in doing that. I did that in one of my interviews and I really regret that. I had headache and I still went for the interviews. Should not do that. If you are not prepared enough for that particular company, for that particular type of interview, reschedule. Headaches, office deadline. If you are on call, some things are coming up. Some unknown thing which just popped up, reschedule. Make sure that you are very comfortable in what you are doing. Cool. That's all I had. So thank you so much everybody for listening to this, and please pass on your experiences and help the community when you are ready to share. And now I'm going to open this up for Q&A.
Before you open that for Q&A, Bhumik, thanks for sharing wonderful details. And I would like to ask Aseem if he want to share his journey briefly.
Sure. First of all, thank you, Bhumik, for putting these slides and putting such a precise and concise way and going through your journey. That is really fantastic and awesome. And I would also want to share a few things which I have seen on my journey. Before that, can you give me a sec? Sorry, I need to fix something on my system. Okay. So uh, currently, not currently, past I was working with the Amazon as a software engineer. Right now, I'm on a break, and I would be joining Facebook soon. So before that, I worked with different companies like GE, Honeywell, and I have almost like 11 plus years of software engineering experience. So coming to the things which I have seen during my prep. So for example, like any interview or system design or coding, there is always functional requirements. In the same way, there are always like non-functional requirements. So in this situation, I just want to share things which I have seen, which could be helpful as terms of which we don't notice, but that always help if we prepare for them also. And I want to take an analogy of a athlete. So think in that way, you are a athlete, you want to do a sprint race of 100-meter, 200-meter, or 800-meter, or a marathon also. So in that thing, if I if I tell you that okay, you have to do 5 rounds and have to run 100-meter in every round, you would be very enthusiastic in first, second, third round, but your energy would go down. So the key here is stamina. So we have to build stamina to survive that entire full day of interview. We generally practice hourly on a day, 2 hours, but on an interview day, we have to spend like 5 hours. Or even there would be lunch round. People say like, okay, that would be where your buddy will come. But again, you would be talking and losing your energy. So that's really important how to conserve your energy and build your stamina around that. The only mantra I think is uh, do more longer sessions, like 3 hour sessions where you feel comfortable, do with your friends who are preparing, and do longer sessions where you have to stretch yourself till 5 hours. And generally, I've seen for any interview, after every round, take a break. Whatever happens, your next interview is there. Tell them politely, "Hey, I need a break." You don't want or want break, still take a break. Go to restroom, put some water, and come back. And if you have a bad round, think in that way. Uh, think in that way that next round won't impact your previous round. That is a fresh round. Like everything will happen freshly. So don't take anything from your previous round to your next round. Also, what I do generally suggest people have a water bottle, soda, and a juice. So when you are stuck and you want to take a pause, start drinking water. That will uh, give an impression that okay, you are drinking water, but you are still thinking. And whenever you are losing energy, start drinking juice or soda. That will give you a sugar rush and will boost your energy immediately. And other thing is during the interview, you have to also make sure like the time is important. As soon you start, there would be like an intro. So be very precise and concise in a 30-liner introduction or a 50-second liner, and then ask your interviewer, do you want me to elaborate? If your interviewer is interested, he or she would ask. Otherwise, why to spend so much time on your introductions only? And then if it's a coding behavior or system design, then based on your round you have to decide like how to strategize it. For coding round, generally I have seen like how much lead code you have done, still there could be unknown question, and there would be a point where you feel nervous. So we need to come out of that nervous thing. Like okay, if you're nervous, anyhow the interview, you could able to screw the interview, but why not give a proper try where feel yourself relax and think okay, you got an unknown question and think in that way. And I think I and Vivek had a discussion a while back, like kind of indexing. So we need to quickly index in our mind that okay, this question could be related to these kind of things, and start thinking out loud. That's a standard term which people say or in the interview, like whatever you're thinking, start speaking. Don't be paused or uh, take an instance where nobody's speaking. So whatever coming to your mind, keep starting telling your interviewer, okay, hey, what I'm thinking, this could be a situation, and this is something which I can try, and use your interviewer as your friend or a collaborator or a peer, and try to solve it together. And again, the format is we need to clarify the requirements, come up with the solution. When you're coming up with a solution, I generally recommend people don't write code. The solution is without code. For example, I'm just telling like, okay, what I'm thinking, this could be the pros and cons of the solution. And if you know two solutions, let's say you have seen that problem, then tell, okay, approach one, I can do two loops and the complexity then scale. I'm not using extra memory. Approach two, I can do it order of n, but I am using order of n memory. So what do you suggest? You want me to conserve memory or want me to have efficient solution? Your interviewer will tell, okay, use this approach. And then from there, start coding and then test your code, have some test case ready, and then be done with your coding thing. It's an and for a system design, I think Bhumik already covered really good things, so I won't go much into that. But I also I want to differ one thing with Bhumik on one of the slide. Um, ask the recruiters about the expectations. So good, you ask the recruiter about the expectations. Recruiter might tell you a couple of things, but be prepared. Things can change in the interview. There could be instance where they'll tell this is a system design round, and it would end up like a coding round. So whenever we like, that's what I do. Whenever I'm going to the interview, I don't expect what is there initially they have seen written. Their things could change. Interviewer can go in any direction where they want to go. So I always go like, okay, whatever is coming to on my way, I will handle that. And I definitely I'll ask like, hey, this round's supposed to be like this. You still want to continue in this way? And the interviewer say yes, then okay, let's do that. And other thing which is coming to my mind is after uh, for behavior interview. For behavior interview, I have seen struggling myself. I used to give stories which are really complicated, and if I even if I tell my wife, she might not able to understand, because that's the nature of my job. I used to do something, I try to explain, then I come with very simple approach like, hey, if I'm going to explain layman what should happen. So I generally, for a behavior round, I have a mantra of like, your story should complete between 3 to 5 minutes. 3 to 5 minutes, very high level details, and whatever is left next, the interviewer himself or herself will ask all the clarifying questions later. Okay, you have done this, then. So keep your story simple, concise, with the impact. Impact could be time. You saved time, you saved cost, you saved money, you improved the process, you had a learning, and you have used that learning. So it should not stop where you have had a learning. It should stop where you have used a learning. So every story should have an impact at the end. That's what I was trying to make out. And the final mantra which I want to share is collaborate as much you can. I have seen myself changed a lot when I started presenting. So SD skills give a really good opportunity where you can get slots to present code, system design, behavior, whatever you want, you can present. So the more you present, the more mental model will develop. This interviewing is not our day-to-day life. Whatever we do is pretty different, and I think most of you would agree with that. What we do in terms of preparation is a different computer science on top of everything, so which is not part of my day-to-day life. So I need to spend extra time, extra hours, and if I'm doing alone, I'm not getting any feedback. So when I do with other people, I can feel out, okay, when I said this thing, the other people person don't even react. So that means I need to rephrase thing differently so people could understand my thought, and then different people would react differently. We have to also, when you are doing a collaboration, that thing also keep in mind. Like, if so, like 15 people are giving you different feedback, it's up to me what feedback I want, and I need to decide myself that okay, this feedback looks more accurate for me, and then because if you ask 10 people, everybody will give you a different opinion. So sometimes we have to decide ourselves between different opinions. And I generally, other thing for the interview timing, I generally prefer having in the start of my sprint. For example, I think most of the people have a 2 week sprint. So I generally don't prefer on the second week of my sprint. That time I have to deliver, code will go to production, things will be in my mind. So I generally prefer in the first week of my sprint. And my favorite days are Thursday and Friday, where I feel I am also feeling light because I know after that I'm going to weekend. And the interviewers I have also seen feel like where they also know, okay, after that we are also going to the weekend. Mondays I don't prefer myself because Monday even I'm not in that mode after a weekend. Sometimes we over prep, like keep on reading things over weekend and then try to spit everything on a Monday, which sometimes also could go negatively. So, so think in that way where you are most poised, calm, comfortable, pick that day. And you might know your schedule of on call or sprint and pick up a day where you feel you are most comfortable and pick that timing and day. So, and before your interview day, try to keep yourself relaxed, sleep on time, wake up or bit late, and be fresh before interview. Generally, one other tip I sometimes try that before interview day in the morning, before my first round, just half an hour ago or like 1 hour ago, I just try to solve a problem. That is just to give myself into that mode. Like my mind start thinking in that way. Okay, I need to solve this question. I need to think about clarifying questions. So yeah, that is another thing can be done just an hour back before the interview will start. But again, don't uh, yes, I know nervousness is quite uh, common, but try to see if you can overcome that because nervousness won't help. It will only make things bad. So think in that way how you can deal nervousness. First round is always where you can feel nervous because that is uh, first round of the day. So think in that way how if it is a okay, so generally I do some other thing also. If it is a cold day, I generally make sure that I have because it's a virtual days, I keep blanket on my legs and keep try to keep myself warm as much I can, so the other environment factor should not impact my performance. So I think these are all the quick tips which I thought to share with you folks. And I think now we have open for questions. You can feel free to ask Bhumik or myself, and we should be able to. We would be happy to assist in any kind of thing which you try to figure it out.
I see a question about the programming language here. Can take that. It did not really matter much, or rather, did not really matter at all, because I interviewed with the companies. I always use Java as my interview language, and I actually worked in C Sharp while I was at Microsoft. But for some reason, Java remained my strongest interview language, and the companies I interviewed with were not writing majority of their code in Java. So it did not really matter to the companies as such. If you are learning new language for the interviews, then I recommend Python because Python is very concise. But if there is nothing you are learning new or you already are comfortable in some language, then go with the language which you are the most comfortable with. Asim, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah. So I think I have a uh, I have a little difference in opinion here. So if you are using Python or JavaScript, then these are very concise languages. Things can be done very concisely. So if you're using them, then just think out loud or speak out like, okay, this is this what is happening here. The other interviewer might not know the syntax, but if you just tell like what this block is doing, would help there. A- and I want to mention another tip earlier. I can cover with this programming language. When you're writing code, try to modularize it. Have different methods. So think in that way you are solving some graph problem. But before that, you have to create adjacency list. So create a different method of that. And because could be your BFS is a core thing in your solution. Creating adjacent list is not the core thing in your solution. So break your methods. So, and if you're running out of time, let's say you have only 5 minutes at the end, then just say like, hey, can I avoid this adjacency list method and we can come back later and cover the core thing. But whatever programming language you pick, keep explaining what you're doing. And if you can feel your interviewer is not able to follow, if he's not familiar with the syntax, then make them more comfortable. Otherwise, you never know what interviewer is going to give the feedback later.
And there is a question about pseudocode.
Okay, I can take that.
Yeah.
Okay, the question is sometimes interviews forces us to start writing after like 5 minutes. I feel more comfortable working on my pseudocode for the first 10 minutes. Should I force myself in that way? So I think there's no right and wrong thing. Every human is different. So we need to assess the situation where we are. And if the interviewer is quite adamant that, okay, I want code, then try to see. So what I generally I've seen and heard from other people also. Like in every company, we have this these days the goal, this leadership principle, like customer obsession. And think your interviewer is also your customer. At the end of the day, we have to kind of suffice the needs of the customer. So try to tell like, hey, I feel like if I write pseudocode, that would be more better for me to translate into actual code, and that's what I do in my day-to-day life also, and always helps me. But if your interviewer says, no, I don't like you, some could be a like a bad day or bad situation, and interviewer says, no, 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 then we can't do anything. There is no point of having an argument in your interview. And anyhow, I have seen as part of my experience, without having seen actual code, people don't assess the candidate fully. So they want to see a actual code being written where they can assess and see the interview candidate is finding bugs and other things. So yeah, and Bhumik, please add your thoughts over here.
I'll just second what you said, that your interviewer is your customer and be obsessed about the customer. That's whatever interviewer is looking for. I would say just go and deliver that. General practice, if the interviewer is not demanding anything, I think we both agree that start with pseudocode so that you have some outline. If there is a lot which needs to be changed, you are not actually a lot into coding already with the pseudocode piece. So if there is no clear expectation or guidance from the interviewer, my approach would be to start with a pseudocode and then translate that into actual code. But if interviewer is explicitly asking for something, deliver it.
Okay, so the next question is, can you please share any resource for object-oriented design prep? I can start this, and Bhumik, you can add that. So I have seen like object-oriented design prep is needed, but not a lot of companies ask. But you never know when somebody will ask you. I've seen not there anywhere in the agenda that object oriented will be asked, and it will come up from anywhere, like a low level design. So always be ready for object oriented design. And I found this is the hardest part for me to prep, because I never knew what is expectation. Then I think we did this one series of object oriented, and that the uh, that the uh, all the videos are in this SD Skills YouTube channel. I think that could be one good place to start with. And the other thing is, I think on the Grooking educative.io, there is a object-oriented design course. One or two courses, I think they're open. I think just try it first time and see if it is making sense to you. There could be a lot of things like UML diagrams, blah, 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 blah. But in 40-45 minutes, we can't cover sequence diagrams, UML diagrams, then defining our classes. So we need to see again what interview is trying to see out of this. Uh, Only thing I want to add is that that video series we have in SD Skills, start with that. I felt like based on my experience in different companies, I felt that is quite appropriate to start with. That does not have UML sequence diagrams, but it has something which interview should be looking. Again, there is always probability. We always go with probability in generalization. That okay, if we have seen this thing happening around, then 50% chances there this will happen again. Again, things could totally go different based on your interviewer. Yeah, Bhumik, please add if you have any thoughts here.
Yeah, actually, I don't have anything to add. I did not prepare specifically for object oriented, and I did not get asked as well about a specific object oriented in any of my interviews. So don't see that it's a common practice, but yeah, don't have much to add there.
Next question of system design. Would you like to take, Bhumik, or shall I take?
Yeah, sure, I can go for it. I'll just read the question so that it goes into recording. The question related to system design. In my day-to-day work, I know very deep about serverless technologies like API Gateway, Lambda, Dynamo, etc. But is it also a good suggestion to learn about other counterparts like Docker, Kubernetes, etc.? Or is it a waste of time? I see myself going into an endless cycle of learning about a bunch of technologies that I may not work on a day-to-day basis. Uh, my 2 cents here would be uh, having an understanding about one type of techno or other one specific example of one category of technology should be enough. And I generally see that it is useful as well when you are using specific example, but at the same time, let's say you are familiar with DynamoDB, right? But DynamoDB is a key value storage, which is highly scalable, very fast. So that is what is the main thing. It's not DynamoDB anybody is looking for, or not any other DB from any other cloud providers. The thing which you are looking for is key value storage. So if you understand the nuances of key value storage, you should be fine. You don't really have to go in exploring all the key value storages which are provided by different cloud providers. That's what my understanding is. And in interviews also, you can talk about the traits you are looking for. For example, Kafka or Kinesis, all you're looking for is a streaming queuing system. So just talk about the traits and maybe say, give an example. This is one example, but these are the traits I am looking for in my system design. I think that should help. Sim, do you want to add?
Yeah, I have seen these days most of the things are where we have to do this distributed systems, and these all things comes really handy. Docker, Kubernetes, and any knowledge of this would be helpful. So think in that way. These days, what is happening, and you can pick up a technology what you feel comfortable. So there would be eventing based system, how the events could work either in a queue or a stream. Pick up any technology which you like to support it. If you don't need no technology, that's fine. Then you just need concepts to know, like how queue system works and how stream system works. What is the difference between them? If you know this thing, that I think is enough. And then everything these days is like a microservices. Like I'm just talking about current latest trends which most companies follow. How microservices could be hosted? They are containerized. Okay, for container, what could be a technology which back it, which is Docker. And Docker, for Docker, what technologies could support is like Kubernetes, where you can do orchestration or Elastic Container Service or Elastic Kubernetes Service, and even Azure would have different things. So even if you don't know the names, but you can explain like, okay, how the orchestration will work, because when we are doing containerization, it needs to be auto scale, it needs to monitor, and it needs a lot of things. And okay, so there is another thing like which the can be how you will do the monitor part, how the alarms will work. Then these technologies like Kubernetes or Elastic Container Service comes really handy. They give you everything: the scaling, alarms, monitor, whatever you want. They will give, and they will be directly linked to the PagerDuty or some other app. So these all things could be helpful. But if you don't know, then the concept should work. And again, in microservices world, the concept of data store. Every service could have their own data store based on the service requirement. The data store could be NoSQL, SQL, or Graph, whatever. If you don't know the technology, like for a NoSQL, like DynamoDB, that's fine. But you can, if you're able to explain what NoSQL differ from SQL, I think that's quite enough. So having name of technologies would be a bonus. But if you don't know and able to explain your flow with the pros and cons which you're going to use, I think you should be okay.
I'll take the next one. I'll just summarize the question. That is how to ask for the feedback to the recruiter or to the team. Um, you can use any forum or any means which is comfortable to you. Let's say your recruiter is calling you to share results. You can ask for feedback on that call. You can also use an email to ask for specific feedback, and whatever is the best mode of communication between you and your recruiter. I have done both things, an email as well as over call. It doesn't really matter much, and I'm kind of a person who prefers call over emails because maybe some things can be misinterpreted or lost in written communication, is what my personal feeling is. So it's always good to talk about things over call if it is a little bit sensitive topic. There was one question which was missed before. It was about please give examples of signals which we need to show during an interview. I don't really understand the signals we need to show. We are uh, trying to just deliver to the expectations. I'm not sure if this is the right word, that signals we want to show. It's just that uh, it's a collaboration. So collaborate with your interviewer, ask right questions. So there are things which you would do in your day-to-day job as well. If somebody comes and asks you for something, instead of just accepting and start working on that, you would ask questions. So just be natural, ask questions about the expectation, collaborate and communicate. There is no signal as such which we are trying to show off as such, or maybe I'm misinterpreting the question here. Asim, do you want to add to this?
Yeah. So okay, I'm just trying to put in this way. If I have to give any signal to the interviewer, what I would do. One, I think I already mentioned, is like customer obsession. And in every situation, we need to, if it is a behavior round, we need to come up like in a positive light. So for example, if I'm going giving a behavior round story, I need to explain that way that the end hero was myself. It should not end up like I end up like a villain in that story. And it, so pick your stories wisely where you have a positive impact rather than showing a negative impact. And sometimes a question would be really tricky, that give me a situation when you got a critical feedback, or give me a situation when nobody listened to you. So in this situation also think in that way, how you come up with at the end, like in a positive light. Like I mentioned you, if you are telling I got a critical feedback, then it should not stop there. I got a critical feedback, like spoiled something in prod, I got a critical feedback. It should not stop there, it should go on. Okay, what I did after that, like okay, I learned from my learnings. Next time I made the robot so sure that this won't happen for me and anybody who's coming in this team, new, old, it won't happen for anybody from now onwards. So there it should end. So positive light should be there. And in case like where you're getting question that okay, uh, where nobody has listened to you, you tried so hard, still there is something okay. uh, I felt that others, whatever they're telling, that was like a better solution which they are proposing. But still, I have documented all my steps. Anytime in the future, because my solution is not ready today, but that doesn't mean that nobody would accept in next 6 months or year. So I've documented everything in Wiki or Confluence, whatever. So this could be used next time from here itself. So there are ways in the trickiest questions also to bring yourself in a positive light, and that happens as a in software engineers. We always do that. We always work with good intentions. Only thing is, like I mentioned, this interview is not part of our day-to-day life. So then we need to think like how to orchestrate ourselves and come up with a situation. And for example, other signals like could be if you are doing a coding round, whether you have asked clarifying questions, whether you have cleared the ambiguity or not. There is always a situation when interviewers purposefully give you an ambiguous situation, and then we need to figure it out. Okay, clarify the ambiguity, and the interviewer is trying to see whether this person is asking enough clarifying questions or directly jumping to the solution. And then explain your solution, collaborate. So collaboration is the other signal which interviewers looking, that okay, whether this person is collaborating or in his or her world. Okay, you collaborated, you discuss your solution, then whether this person is a good coder or not. Like I was mentioning, that have your solution modularized, uh, have good variable names. If you can, don't use like really big variable names. Try to have small variable name but which makes sense. Have the method names which make sense, not like okay, test method. Like have some better names which interviewer would be saying okay, the person use good naming conventions. Then other thing which Vivek shared a tip with me a long back, that if you don't need to write comments. If you start writing commands, we are wasting time. But put two slashes and put dot 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 and say, okay, if I have time, I will come back. So your interviewer will get that idea. Okay, this person is really good in documenting things, because this is very common question. When if this code has to be seen after a year by a different engineer, how you could do things different? If you have enough commands, enough documentation, good variable names, good modularization, good unit test, anybody can come and read your code without any problem. So, and then the main part is test your code. When I wrote my code, did test? Did I put good unit tests? Not like we are not writing unit tests, but I'm telling okay, when this is the input, this would be the output. When the input is empty, what should happen? When the input is null, what should happen? When the input is this thing happen. Sometimes interviewer also see when you put like a invalid input, what should happen? Do you return invalid response or do you throw an exception? Like what the other system who's calling your service going to react based on your response. So these are the things which I've seen interviews sometimes or most of the times looking for, and we need to give these signals in this way that interview able to, so at the end interview has to document about you. So if I have not given enough data points to him or her, they won't able to document for me. And every company these days do a debrief. So there, all the interviewers will tell their data points, and then if everybody's all the interviewers are consistent, oh, this person test his or her code, ask clarifying questions, good collaborator, then you after that, if all the then you would be like a really strong candidate in the debrief, and then even you don't need to negotiate after that, because every company rate the interview candidate like a really strong, moderate, or something like that. If you are already on the strong side, the first offer would be the highest offer which you will get. Sorry, I went really long. I got really into the flow.
Any other question? Anyone?
Okay,
Okay.
this is yeah. Go for it, Aseem. I'll add later.
Oh yeah, you can start and then I can add my thoughts.
Okay, I'll just read the question. How can I make a better impact in a system design round for a senior role? How would a successful design round look like where things could go wrong? So I'll draw some examples from my own experience that where things go wrong is uh, claiming things which you are not really aware of and then just flunking that particular piece. So if I am claiming that, okay, I know consistent hashing, I think in one of my, it was in the mock interviews, that was the feedback I received as well, that if you don't know a topic, don't go for it. So if you are claiming something, make sure you completely know that. Just be open about things. So that is where things can, just go south, that okay, this person is not being open and it's not even able to deliver on things which in my case I was not able to deliver properly even though I claimed it. So that is one. Then flow is another thing which for me took some time to get right. That is flow of things. So have your template ready and right, and then have a flow that okay, I'll cover functional requirements, known functional requirements, then maybe some sort of high level capacity estimation, then high level diagram, then check with the interviewer and zoom into specific components of this, then talk about error scenarios, and then circle back to the requirements and see if you missed anything and things like that. So flow is something which can go wrong and you can go all over the place if you are not trying to drive it properly. Happened with me. So in one of my interviews, I was just going all over the place and I was always reacting to things instead of driving from my end. My interviewer would ask me something and then I would change something and then something else would break in that particular section. So I'll again change something there. So take a pause and you know have your flow right and have your proposals little bit thought through instead of just giving an answer then and there. And for senior roles, I would just say that uh, be wary of things which can go wrong. Distributed systems are prone to failures. So be aware on where your systems can go wrong. So in one of my positive interviews, what happened is that my system, which I had created, was prone to a lot of failures. But I went through the next round because I pointed out all the things which could go wrong or which were not really fault tolerant in my design. So that was the feedback actually, which was again talking about taking the feedback even in the positive rounds, that the feedback precisely says that the system had issues, but the candidate was aware of all these issues. So sometimes that awareness of things which are wrong in your system, and then you can come back and address those things. So be wary of things which can go wrong in a distributed system. A network can go off, a DC can go down, um, split brain problem in a leader based system and things like that. So be wary of those things. That is, I think, would be expected from a senior candidate as well, to be aware of the bottlenecks of your system, failure modes of your system, and how would you respond to those things. So yeah, those are some of the things. Asim, go for it.
So I think Bhumik, you have already covered this. Even if I have to give very quick thing, so think in that way. If you are already doing a senior role in your company, you might be knowing how you differ from the entry level engineer or a mid level engineer. So there are things which are quite evident that you might want to exercise in the interview also, which which a mid level engineer might not think. For example, this is where, like Bhumik mentioned, where the systems will fail. And things which people always miss is monitoring, alarm, alerting. We design a system, but how to run the system for long run, which people miss. But a senior engineer would know things where can go wrong really quick, because based on their experience they have seen. And a senior engineer also bring a different perspective, different alternate solutions. Okay, I can do this or do that, and these are the pros and cons, and how my system will interact with other systems. What would be my downtime? What would be my P99s? What would be my SLA? So these all things a senior engineer could bring in, and then for them, what I feel is doing a system design interview in 40 minutes. Also, they're so good that they can cover a lot of details in just 40 minutes. Also, it's just a habit and practice, as simple as that. If I have to do, I might take a lot of pauses, have to think a lot, because that is not my day-to-day thing, to think a lot, too much detail into the systems. So, but a person who does this day-to-day basis can really quickly say, okay, uh, okay, uh, this is something you are expecting, and I feel like these are the things, blah 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 blah, and yeah.
I'll read out a question for you guys to answer. How long was your interview prep cycle, start to finish?
So,
Okay, go for it, Asim.
so for me, I think for me it was quite long. Earlier, I used to do alone, and I was not that active. Passively, I used to do. But when I think I joined SD Scales, I got a lot of collaboration. And in the start, also, I was like, there was a library session used to happen. I used to visit as a guest, do certain, and yeah, this is actually a true story of mine. I used to play or do some chatting on phone, and used to leave that session thinking that if I have attended the session, I'm automatically I will get matured. But that was the wrong thing which I did. Only when I started presenting myself and collaborating, then I found a change, and then it expedited my journey. So if you are doing right away, then should be okay to do in 1 or 2 months. You should be ready in 2 or 3 months. Uh, because we need to come up with that mental model, like I mentioned, stamina, surviving 5 rounds, giving all these signals which Bhumik and I spoke about. And if all these things fall into place, then no interview is hard to crack. But we need to come into that mode, or step into that shoes of running into that direction. So I would say it should be like 3 to 4 months based on how you are starting upon.
I'll add my experience in the prep cycle. So, like Asim, I also started coming to SD skills for the algo sessions. Sorry, the yeah, I attended actually Sunday algorithm sessions. Then the lead code daily sessions, but at that time I was just trying to explore the space. So it was not a dedicated preparation, but let's say I did a month of that, and then I took time off, and uh, it was a 3 months period for me. So a month in around April time frame for me, last April time frame, and then 3 months starting from October is how I prepared.
Okay. The next question is, I am currently in service-based company. To get into product-based company, apart from DSA, data structure and algorithm, do I need to concentrate on side project?
I think let me try to put in this way. It's very generic thing, but I feel like if we are going to product based company, there would be three things which they are looking, in my opinion. One is this coding, data structure, or problem solving algorithms. Second is system design, and third thing is this behavior thing. And I've seen like these days, most of the companies started asking behavior. Either it will be a full-fledged round or somewhere here and there in between the interviews. So if you are solid on your fundamentals on data structures, algorithms, problem solving, that is good. Then comes to system design. For that also, it could be like we need to we have to prep a lot about system design topics which are around, and sometimes they even ask you to explain your project in the system design round. Try to see like what you have seen and what you have learned. So in that case, you might need to have a project in which, if you are working on service based company, I don't think like you might not have a solid project. You might be working for your own company or a client, and definitely you can bring that project in. And the third one is behavior. Very evident, like person would able to know what things you're currently working with the situation, that okay, tell me a time when you have influenced your team, and then you tell, okay, I did this, I picked up this technology, and then people were not ready to use it, don't agree with that, then I told the pros and cons, and then it works. So if your current project where you're working suffice all these needs, then I don't think so you need a side project. If you do a side project, but how you will explain that as your full-time project, that is another challenge. Bhumik, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, not much. I think if you are getting enough work in your existing company, which you can talk about and share and show the impact, don't worry too much about side project. If it is just for your own uh, passion and for your own exploration, do it. But I don't think it is necessary. But again, I don't have much experience in this area, that is coming from service-based company to a product-based company. So I may not be the best person to actually give any advice here.
I'll just add my experience. I came from service-based company to Microsoft 3 years ago. So the only thing that matter is that if you have a project which you can showcase for your design or other interview questions, then it's fine. Otherwise, you might want to look some contribution to the open source project so that you can talk about it. But I believe that most of the if interviewer is looking for, let's say, scaling, how you handle scale and how you handle, you know, a lot of other details. You might not get that from open source project unless you are contributing for many years, at least over a year. Uh, so there's another question about sharing the slide. This recording will be up on YouTube channel, so we'll have a reference to that. One question that I missed from Vincent is general comments on job market. Vincent, if you want to elaborate that question, that would be great. And I think that that is pretty much it. I'm going to stop the recording. Thank you, Bhumik and Aseem, to join and share all your learning. It was really great and very helpful.
Sure, sure. Yeah, and if there is anything which we could not cover, feel free to message us on LinkedIn or Discord, and would be happy to share more.